here for the first time in 2 years since COVID hit, and I'll be doing the same work that I normally do, which is to say the program art. It's like a 4-page fold out for the cover and a 4-page fold out painting for the inside of the program. Jean is already starting to work on the design for the program, which she designs the entire thing, choosing all the photos and the setups and everything. And so that's in progress right now. I just started that, and God, what else did I work on, Jean? Do you remember? I worked on several other things. I can't. They kind of like go in and out of my head as I do them, you know. But this one's really involving because I mean, it's taking into consideration the tour and the art that I've already done for 18 years, and the like not desiring to repeat myself. And of course, Jean kicks my butt because I have a tendency to repeat myself with this, and she starts to point out, well, that's just we did that already. You did that already. How about this? How about that? So, and so there's that kind of like effort going on right now, and I'm drawing, and it's not entirely there yet. Probably in about 2 more days, I'll have some initial, you know, um, final first sketch of both paintings. So that's what
Okay, cool. All right, and obviously we can't see that stuff just
no,
yet.
not yet.
And we're not going to hold it up, not going to show anything yet.
Right.
That all remains under wraps until the release of the first concert, right? I think is when they released that
Yeah,
tour
in
poster.
October. Yeah, I think we when do we release the program, G? Yeah, when do people see it? Second week in October we start to ship it because Jean handles all the printing and binding and here with their printer.
Very
And
cool.
that too, there's a bunch of stuff happening that we can't talk about yet. Some really great, exciting projects going on. That once they become
nice. So yeah, we get some people tuning in. Elijah's saying hello, Elijah.
Greetings, Elijah.
So with you talking about that, the concert program, that actually brings us into what we were going to talk about today. I didn't realize you were going to mention painting and working on the program, but that's actually a very good segue.
Yeah.
And we're talking about painted art for reproduction. Now, a lot of art, I would say, today in today's climate is consumed through Instagram, or on telephones and iPads and things like that, or at least that people are aware of that's how they're consuming it. But art still exists out in the world, and you're looking at it through packaging design, concert programs, tour programs, things like that still actually have to get printed and made.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about actually handling paintings and what your process is and how you think about things, knowing that they're going to be for print.
That one of the first things you're thinking about is size that is going to be reproduced. Whether like a Magic.
Why do you take size into consideration?
Well, if you have a Magic the Gathering painting that's going to be reduced down to a card size, which is what, 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide.
About that, yep.
2 by 3 inches, well, the entire card, but the image is, and as opposed to a painting that would be on a poster, say, or even this program that I'm designing, which the program is about that big, So it's about taking that into consideration. And if you're going to do, at least that's the way I think. I mean, you're designing it for Magic or any card set, Harry Potter or whatever you're doing, X-Men, Marvel. It has to read that size.
Okay.
It has to have an impact at that size, which means you can't really get too complex with it, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying that some people can't pull that off. I'm sure they can. But I have a tendency to think in terms of, well, you got to keep it readable and have the primary center of interest read right away and not be too confusing, for your eyes to register what's going on there. So I think that's one thing, just complexity of the image, probably
Okay.
the way to put
So
it.
let's break that down a little bit more for everybody. I want just to get into some of the technical nitty gritty. All right. So you have a concert program, which for those who haven't seen the Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert programs.
Let me grab it. Let me grab the last one I did just quickly here. Should have
So
had it
anyway,
with
these
me.
things are larger than regular magazine size. You're going with slightly larger dimensions. There you go. That's
This
last
is
2019.
right, and then it's like the outside is a fold out. You fold out four. This I did vertically. Whoops, upside down vertically. This is a vertical. I mean, several ideas merged into one more or less ongoing image, which is a whole. This was a whole different method of combining a horizontal storyline, which the inside is illustrations defining the principal central story song in the Christmas Eve and Other Stories concert. That's what, but it's now if I was to do this for a card, you certainly could not contain all this information in a picture that big. So it's about simplification. In other words, all right. There you go.
So we have that size, which is essentially a poster, and then versus Magic the Gathering, which if anybody saw the icon to the announcement for this show, that was actually a Magic painting that I put next to your picture. Do you handle the application of the paint differently?
No, I don't think so. I'm not. No, I mean you may not necessarily need to get as cleaned up edges and tight as you do for if you need to, if there's a deadline involved and you got to get it done fast, because a lot of that won't read, reduce down so small, rough edges or but generally speaking, I don't think any differently. I mean, except I'll be using smaller brushes. Obviously, the bigger the painting, the broader the brush you use, and the smaller the painting, the smaller the brush you use. Your
No,
physical movements will be different too. Bigger and smaller.
Okay. Yeah, I know with black and white, like ink work, they talk about, making sure that your feathering doesn't get too close.
Right. That's
Because when
that's
it reduces down, it's going to go to mud,
totally
or
understandable.
solid black.
Well, there was an artist I knew, and not to mention names, who I would try to counsel with, you're painting too goddamn tight. This is for reproduction. This was to be a comic book, painted comic book. Some of the panels are this big. The trees, he was painting the trees in the distance in the panels with every single leaf. He said the leaves are smaller than the dot pattern. The dot pattern being the printing process. So you're just wasting all your time, and it's going to turn into mush. There's no clarity to it, So if you get too tight, if you get hyper tight with something that's going to be reduced, it's kind of pointless.
Just all gets lost.
It gets lost. So you've wasted a lot of time. So it's like, yeah, there's all kinds of things that take into consideration ahead of time. I think, though, color pretty much remains the same for me. It doesn't matter what size it is.
Mm-hmm.
But just the palette, the chroma intensity or lack of intensity. That just depends on the subject itself, how you want to handle it in terms of the color.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so color, that brings up a couple different things as well. One, we're talking about the printing process, and right now, the printing process is still done in what they refer to as CMYK, which is cyan, yellow, magenta, and K
Right.
represents
Keep
black.
talking. I'll be right back.
For the people that don't know, so it's CMYK. Now, with computers and a lot of technology and what you view online, that's the RGB color gamut, which is red, blue, green, and combinations of those things plus black and white. And so Greg went to go get something. And
cards. This is a card set.
Right. What we show us.
Now, all of this stuff was done not for cards. This was a card set that we did many, many years ago. Comic Images did 1992, and a lot of these are reprints of the pictures out of the books that I was illustrating for Unicorn Publishing back in the day. So they still register, you know.
Yep.
Obviously, the larger image registers better. Like that's out of Alice in Wonderland, and that was a big close up in the book. But it's still
that going. I'm doing this live stream from my phone, so I have you approximately 1/4 of my screen size, and then that card was even
like a little tiny
1/32 of that. But that Alice in Wonderland still just registered.
Yeah.
Read immediately.
Yeah, a bigger image registers, quite simply. Complexity does not. It gets, lost. So, and then they add these sparkly things to do. Whoa!
It shines.
It's kind of fun. I mean, yeah, it's like we were just talking. It's like TV. I mean, I was around when TV kind of like first started. Not really first started, but when people started to buy them into their homes in the 1940s, the screen sizes were like this, and you had everybody. The first person on the block got a TV, and so everybody they'd have the Red Wings were playing the Rangers. They had a hockey game tonight. And so you'd all run over to the house. They had their chairs all lined up like a little theater, folding chairs, watching a screen 20 feet across the room with little dots. Gradually, of course, the desire, and that's black and white on top of it, and not necessarily great quality on the image. Gradually, screens get bigger, them color enters, and my God, and then the clarity today of high definition and everything. And now it's back down to tiny little pictures that people are looking at on their phones, watching entire movies. It's kind of crazy, right?
It is. It is. We got a lot more people chiming in saying hello. William Call says his 8-year-old daughter loved your artwork in Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, thank you. That was a pain. Gene said, okay, we're doing Alice in Wonderland. She had Unicorn Publishing, and we would pick books that were in the public domain that we wanted to do. Of course, we always loved Alice, and I panicked, man, because something like 400 artists already illustrated Alice, up to or down to or over to Salvador Dali. So I mean, you have this whole, oh my God, expectation, and then Tennille's original drawings and all that stuff. Disney's movie, which many people did not like, but I loved, and I still do. Get Mary Blair's production design and everything, and I literally had a full-blown, all-out panic attack, and I was literally, and it happened synchronistically, I guess, on the image that I was painting of Alice falling down the rabbit hole. Really? I just totally freaked out. I don't know what it was like. That whole the panic, and I don't feel that way. You take on a project, it's challenging, and there's anxiety, which is always there. But that one had me panic. So I stuck a self-portrait of myself on the wall as Alice is falling down, and I'm pointing upwards, like, "Hey, kid, you're going in the wrong direction." Anyway, that's just a segue. But in the end, yeah, it was fun. It was fantastic to do.
So when you're painting and you know that it's going into a book, it's going into a card set, and you, how much do you think about the printing process? Uh, I know. Do you still think about it as much as maybe you did in your earlier career,
No, no,
or
no, no, not
like
not
when you
really at
color
all.
palette?
No, I mean one of the key things, because I started in Detroit working in the animation department of an industrial film producer, and you know damn well that when you're painting the backgrounds, of which Tim and I painted a lot of backgrounds for the films, you can't have any lumps or bumps. Number one, which was always a key issue for reproduction, you know, in painting. You know, if you slop on paint and it gets thick and highlight and all that kind of stuff and casting shadows, the bumps are, especially in animation, you know, where you got side lights, you're laying your art flat and the animation camera and you're lighting it from the sides and you're hitting these highlights and bumps. You can't, so I was always aware of it really from early on. I like to keep it as flat and smooth as possible for reproduction purposes. If
Yeah,
you're painting for live paintings in a gallery, well, hell, do whatever you want. Put the paint on 4 inches thick, you know, it doesn't matter, you know.
yeah. Now with like, blues are particularly hard to get because you're starting with a cyan, and all your blues have to come from a mix of, a cyan and a magenta, or and adding yellows or whatever, and to get those. So was that ever anything that like you really thought about or that you consider when you're mixing it? Like, I know that I have to avoid this kind of blue when I paint because it's not going to reproduce.
It isn't so
Or
much. No, I never thought of that, Keith. It's like if 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 you get, let's say, a hot color and a cold color, blue and oranges, the same value. You know, their values are exact. Sometimes that you get into some, I don't know what the hell. It's like a weird thing happens in the printing. Yeah, if you're rendering from a highlight to the shadow and the colors aren't exactly right, I find magenta is a problem too. You know, reds sometimes and magentas. And I remember a lot of being aware of that kind of thing. I think now I don't think about it anymore because I just paint. It probably is totally unconscious, you know?
okay, you've just adapted
Yeah,
over the years. I mean, because I've seen, you know, a good deal of your work, and going from, from the painting through the high definition scan into the computer with some color correction going on, uh, but typically not a whole lot, you know.
yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen any of your paintings really in production that where it's just like, oh my god, this is a nightmare.
yeah,
That we have to really adjust this entire color palette because it's going to reproduce as gray or anything like that.
yeah,
Now, I mean, one of the advantages that people that work digitally have is that right there in Photoshop or whatever, you can set your color palette to be CMYK, and it'll limit you to that color space.
okay.
Or
Hmm.
you could see like, oh, if I pick this color is not going to print well, and it's going to shift down to this. And so you can adjust on the fly, but that's not something you can do when you're painting.
Well, the thing too is
Uh,
that I assume, I mean, art for print, here's on paper, here's an old Popular Science from 1933. There it is on paper. Pretty damn good job for, you know,
yeah,
1933. Uh, it's different than digital because you're dealing with light. You're dealing, everything is much more intense
yeah,
digitally, right?
yeah.
This gets more. The intensity on paper is never there. You can't get that. It's impossible because you're not dealing with light. It's an opaque medium. You know.
Okay, so with that being said, do you oversaturate or do you boost the chroma
It depends on the
in your
subject.
work?
That's only due to the subject. That, that, 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 that's only due to the In other words, the
Okay.
Chroma thing is like, it's not coming necessarily out of reproduction purposes that I'm jamming up chroma or reducing chroma. It's like, what do I want this picture to come off looking like? You know?
Yeah.
So that, I've never, certainly since Gene, I've been working with Gene and Unicorn Publishing, and the reproduction that they have these days is incredible. You know? I mean, there were problems, I think, in the past. I remember we were doing stuff for Platt and Monk, a really old publisher in the Bronx. They did the little engine that could, so they go way back to that. They remember talking with a camera guy and the colors guys, and they were really having problems if we were doing watercolor and then doing opaque on top of it. It was like really screwing up the camera and what the camera was seeing.
Hmm.
So you had to be real careful, more careful back then. Now I don't think there's any. I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
limitations like that. You know, I don't think so.
Nothing that couldn't be very quickly adjusted.
Yeah.
You
But I
know.
remember really long conversations with these guys about that kind of stuff, being careful. It's like, I don't think, like now I've taken to a lot, depending on the subject. Again, painting on a black canvas, that would have been very difficult back then to reproduce accurately. You know,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you have if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I've read it in the past, but I haven't read it lately. Uh, some illustrators would paint. What the hell's his name? God damn it! See, that happens with age. Uh, the great illustrator who painted right straight out of the tube. Oh, as he painted, he did them in color separations. He'd layer each layer of I forgot what process. Why can't I think? You see, it's a crazy. You know these names as well
I
as you
know
know
who
your
you're
own
talking
name.
about. I know who you're talking about. We were just
Come
talking.
on, Gene.
We
Who
were
am I
just.
talking about? The illustrator that painted like he was painting color separations. Huh? No, 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 no. Color separator. The guy from the turn of the century. The guy that Michael Jackson loved and had his painting, one of his paintings. Maxfield Parrish. Holy crap.
Thank you,
I
Gene.
mean, jeez, oh man. It's like you lose it. He painted like direct. That's apparently that's the intensity that is showing through because it's straight color. He's not toning it with anything, and he's not diluting it in any way, form, or manner. You know, layering the
Okay.
paint on top of each other, much like an ink process. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people watching know more about it than I know. Whatever.
But guess what? They're not talking.
I feel like a goofball. I couldn't even remember Parrish's name. Holy crap!
It's no worries, man. I was just talking about Maxwell Parrish with Gene maybe a month ago now.
Yeah,
So
I mean, he was
and it just
amazing.
just went right out of my head.
It looks like he painted separately when you see a lot of his images. You know,
Yeah.
everything is really clear and sharp, and you know, it's really pretty wild looking.
That's like the same kind of thing. If I'm not mistaken, I've never done it, but like with silk screening and screen
Yeah,
printing,
I've never done
they
that
have
either.
they have to cut the separations and then
Yeah,
and
it's
run
just
the ink
clear
that way.
color. As soon as you take,
Yeah.
you're mixing. Obviously, you're mixing a value range. You know, you have to add white to these colors to get that. You need that if this is an opaque medium, you're adding white. As soon as you start to put white into the color, it basically, in a sense, kills the color.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
but you have to do it in order to. I tried once though, when we did Mary Stuart's Merlin. Lady Stuart wrote this trilogy. It read. It was great. It read as the reality that preceded the myth. And I remember at that point, I was trying something. Let me see if how many of these pictures I can paint with paint straight out of the tube. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But literally, I was using it most colors until finally getting to say the white center of the sword of Excalibur, the glowing sword in the one scene where there's white. But right straight next to that now is straight cadmium yellow light, straight cadmium yellow medium, straight cadmium orange, right out of the tube. And then moving into possibly red medium to red oxide with all these right out of the tube. And some of it worked and some of it didn't. But you can do it all kinds of ways,
Yeah, I'm thinking back to those paintings, and they do have a very
like I said, not all. Like there's one, he's out in the battlefield and the swords thrown at him or flying or something. And the sky, of course, is a blue sky with white clouds. That needed white paint, but some of the other ones did not. And I just, and the fire ones, obviously, they work when you're painting fire. That's no big deal. Everything gets, in this particular scene, it was all monochromatic. So you weren't looking for any skin colors or anything. It just all was totally in the yellows, oranges, reds, and then moving into darkest purple into that as the darkest dark, which this is.
Which to me reads as black.
Yeah.
Through my screen.
It reproduces as black.
Yeah.
But when you see the actual painting live, it has a different impact. So in that sense, I like to use it for that reason, because live the picture looks better to me. If you're using black, as you move into the shadow color, it
dulls it out.
Dulls it. Yeah. Yep. Unless you're using it consciously as one of your values, and as using black as a color in a sequence from light to dark or dark to light,
Yeah. But it's, with black, just, like straight, like a Mars black,
yeah.
There is something about it. It's just, it's dull.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've you can paint with it though. I mean, when we did Dracula, I definitely said I'm using black. I'm going to use black. Now I'm going to work it. I used it. Yeah, I have to think and assert. Okay, am I going to use black as a cool color in this scene I'm painting, or am I going to use black as a warm color? I have to get it set up in my head that it's actually a color. It's going to be warm or cool. That is to say, for the sake of the colors preceding it, And so then, and you can do it that way. Or I did it.
I mean, when you look at the Dracula paintings, they do have a more muted palette.
Yeah.
Than the other paintings that you were doing, and not just like the Marvel paintings, but Oz in particular,
Yeah.
So the whole thing has a very subdued feel, which makes complete sense for the subject matter.
Yeah, totally. You want it to be more, at least I did back then, I wanted it to be more, black and whitish, even though obviously color Dracula films have been great, at least.
Yeah.
One of my favorites still is the original Hammer horror of Dracula with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. I think if I'm going to land on a Dracula movie that I like, that's the one. Because that's the first time you see blood on the screen. I'll never forget. Sitting in the movie theater in Detroit, and I was with this kid. We were going to Meinzinger's art school at the time, and we decided that we wanted to go see it after school. So we walked downtown Detroit, and we sat in the theater, and he was terrified, this kid. He was peeking through his to his button on it, hole on his shirt. But you see Christopher Lee standing in that first shot when you cut to him, boom, and that beautiful music. It's almost like, I don't know, the music is strong in that film. It's a great sound score. And he's got the blood all streaming down his face. Nobody ever did that before. That was never in the movie. They had code. The code wouldn't allow blood. You could see a little bit splatter once in a while. Bang, bang, you're shot, and it go like this. There's nothing. I mean, guys would fall.
Yeah.
Right? which has always looked very bizarre. Even as a kid, I remember being, wait a minute, there's no, where's the blood? And that
A
was
little
like,
bit of film trivia that I did not know. I
yeah,
mean, I've seen that movie, but I did not know that that was the first.
that's the big
Like,
time. And then when they drive the stake into the heart, with the blood spurting, oh my God,
uh,
people were freaking out in the theater because it had never been done.
no doubt.
Boy, God, can you
So
imagine those people coming and seeing movies today? Oy vey.
yeah, yeah,
John Wick or what the hell ever.
yeah. Any kind of horror movie where it's just
Yeah.
everywhere, everywhere. So to go back to uh, art for um, reproduction, reproductive.
Yep.
So we're talking about the color palettes. We talked about loosening up your strokes. Not noodling in there and thinking about the size and all that. One of the most crucial elements, right, for anything that's going to be a printed product, right,
Mm-hmm.
is the visual impact, right? That was like the first thing you had said to me, is that it's got a readability, it's got to make an impact.
Clear. I mean, that's what I grew up with. It's you. I remember being into animation very much so, and reading, great animators at Disney, so Ward Kimball and all those guys. That you should be able to paint your animated figure, your drawing, say of whoever it was, Jiminy Cricket. You should paint it all out, be able to paint it all out black, and still see it when it registers, like silhouette art, to have it
No,
really read clearly. So I have a tendency to pose like that. Maybe sometimes too obviously. Maybe I should be more obscure. I don't know, but there's a tendency to pose it to make clear what the hell the figure is doing, and that because I mean we talked about this right before. Like there's this figure number or time of how much time you have to grab somebody's attention. See, on a book cover in a store, that was always the thing when I was doing a lot of book covers back in the 70s. Was the issue? This thing is going to be on the shelf with a whole bunch of other books. What's going to grab people's attention to that one and not that one and not that one and not? There's this mass confusion of all these images. Clarity and simplicity is the way you know what I mean. That
yeah,
powerful punch. I think who really had that down was Frazetta, right? The clarity of his composition of his. They were very powerful. They're almost
yes,
almost
yep,
always that pyramidical triangular thing. Plus,
yep.
very clear. Boom. You have that kind of like that fast impact type thing. So yeah, I'm taking that into account, especially when you're doing the small stuff too for cards and everything. Whether or not I
Yeah.
succeed, most of the time I don't know, but that's always the effort.
Well, you were talking about, maybe your stuff is too obvious that of what you're
I don't
doing,
know. I
and
mean, I'm just talking.
but yeah, but where I was going with that is, what, whether that's said or not, what can't be said is that it's not readable. you know
Right? Yeah.
your stuff is definitely readable, whether it's on a poster, building, or a card,
Yeah.
right? And you're able to get quite a bit of detail in there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not just like, okay, it's a face and nothing else is going on.
Right.
Like, I mean, you're able
That's
to
always
do that.
that's about lights and darks also. It's not
Yeah,
only the elements within the image and how many there should be or shouldn't be. It's the value ranges of light against dark or dark against light, making things read that way. You know,
yeah. Yep.
it's all part of that. And then color focus. What was it that you said? What was that? You do a lot of commercial work. And what's the new thing?
The new phrase, hang on, I gotta recall it into my head, is creating a hierarchy. um oh shoot, man, I just told you this yesterday.
It's like Maxwell
Why don't
Parrish.
I remember? I'll have to go back and look. But a dominance hierarchy based on level of importance. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Right.
Be sure to create a dominance hierarchy based on level of importance.
Bada boom, bada boom, bada boom, which is mean good composition, strong center of interest, primary center of interest being very clearly stated within the image.
Yes.
Boom.
Or even more simply put, is keep the main thing the main thing.
Keep the main. Gene's taping boxes. That's what that sound is. No, that's all right. Well, here, and I said, Keith told me this yesterday about, that phrase that he said, keep
the dominance hierarchy.
And I had done the sketch from this carving in Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, which is to say, kings are strong, wine is stronger, women are even stronger, but truth will conquer all. So there's the hierarchy of importance, from the king to the wine to the woman to the truth, the all-seeing eye. But it proceeds upwards, and
that is definitely the dominance hierarchy.
Right.
Or in the case of the job that I was doing is, we want the main character to be in a bright yellow jumpsuit.
There you go. Yellow is the color.
Well, and in every frame that character appears, bright yellow jumpsuits.
Yep. That's clearly the right color to use for that purpose, for sure. I remember Haskell Wexler, a great filmmaker, he did a film called Medium Cool, which is about a photographer and his obsession with photography and getting it down. I have not seen that film since I saw it in the theater way back in the day, in the 70s, I guess, maybe. But he went to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, where it was very much, in '68, very much anticipated that shit was going to happen. And he's telling a story, but he has his principal actor, woman, wear a yellow dress, because you're going to put her in the park across from the convention where all the shit may happen. Yeah. And indeed it did, with that wild, crazy event with the police attacking, pushing people through windows.
Yep.
And he could keep his eye on his camera on this woman caught in this melee because of her bright, light yellow dress.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting film to look at. Like I say, I haven't seen it since then. But it's about obsession, about art, of photography. This guy can't relate to anything unless it's through the camera. It's interesting.
I've never seen it.
It's a really interesting movie. It's real and surreal and very symbolistic, political as hell. All kinds of stuff. Really unusual.
We have some person asking, and that's actually their username. He has a question about one of Tim's paintings called The Fire Pit. It's called The Fire Pit. Are you familiar with that painting?
No.
Maybe if you saw it, you would be.
I probably would be. Yeah, Tim and I didn't work together for a number of years, and I tried to keep up with everything he was doing, but I can't remember.
What he says is that in this painting, it just seems like it's pure complementary colors. And how would he plan that painting?
That I don't know.
So some person, if you can, let me know if that was from Tim's TSR days, or what that was from, and then we could maybe not during this live stream right now, but we could find an image of that and then get back to you on on what he did there, just so that we're familiar with it. So to get back to that visual impact, that you're saying, you create the silhouette and it's the lights versus the darks, right?
Right.
And that was one thing that I had been meaning to ask you and to talk to you about for some time now. We always talk about the lighting, where's the light source, coming from, what's it hitting? And we often talk about, you using dioxazine purple for your darkest color and it reads as black. but I don't think that you and I have ever addressed it in on the live stream here, of that shadow and those dark colors are as every bit as important as that light, right?
Totally. You don't have one without the other. You can't have
You
light
know,
without dark. You can't have dark without light. You can't have up without down, or left without right, or hot without cold. I mean,
and
it's the reality we live in. Subjects are solid. There's a light shining on them. It gets to a dark side. That all those colors in there, as you say, are just as important. All those colors here, in the light side. The light or dark. What the hell? Like I'm looking at my screen reversed. You know what I'm saying? So what's that color? What's this color? You establish this color that's going this way. What the hell is that? It's a completely different color than this is,
yep.
and
And
it's
even
got
I think a good example with what you're showing everybody else right now is the black shirt behind it, which is
okay.
really cutting that arm out,
Yeah,
So just
right.
it goes through that whole level of values. And I
Well,
know for myself, and I know that I'm not alone in this. Uh, it's young artists, amateur artists, or people like just don't know exactly what you're doing. Maybe it's a fear-based thing. Kind of always stay in the middle ground of colors, right?
mm,
You never get too bright in the highlights, and you never get dark enough in the shadows,
yeah,
and it ends up creating a
yeah,
visual mud.
yeah.
And you know
Well, it's about conquering fear,
yeah,
and it's like either sink or swim, kind of like concept, right? There was that thing. The way people taught their kids to swim was they threw them in the water.
yeah,
You know, in this case, it isn't quite that disastrous. You're not necessarily going to die or drown, but there's nothing to be lost. There's only something to be gained by jumping in and not being afraid of color.
yeah,
There's don't fear it. Tackle it like it's exciting and something that can be achieved. You can learn how to do it. Just don't be afraid of it. Yeah, because what have you got to lose? Like I say, you try it out. I mean, you're not going to die. It didn't work. You try it again,
yeah,
and try it
yeah,
again until you finally get it. You eventually get it if you stick with it.
yeah,
It's like anything, right?
yeah. And it's the knowing when and where to push and pull, right? And
Right.
even in my last the last painted job I did, not advertising stuff, but the painted job, I showed you before I turned it in. And that was like, you're like, okay, you need to make these brighter, because that section's getting too dark in the shadows,
Right.
so you need to make it brighter to read, and you need to do this. And it was like, just like with a couple extra little brush strokes, it just,
Yeah.
made the image pop.
Yeah.
So, it's there. It's all about that,
Yeah.
the fine tuning. I think, sorry to ramble on about this topic a little bit, but I do think it's
All right.
important for,
Yeah.
a lot of people, maybe watching this, is that there is the tendency to noodle in the middle ground,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you could do a lot of stuff in there, a lot of, the details and the rich colors and the saturations and all of that. But at the end of the day, those aren't going to make the image pop for that
Right.
visual impact,
Right.
you know?
Number one, as I said, first of all, about all of this conversation, we're talking about color and reproduction now. Now we're a broader conversation about art in general is the number one thing is composition, the setup within your picture plane. You know, where's the object? Where's the primary center of interest on that picture? Where's your where is it positioned within the picture plane? Picture plane being the shape. That's number one. Where do you position that? Then color and value and everything else becomes secondary to that. And then that gets determined by the lighting setup. The color and the value gets determined by the lighting setup. If it's a firelight, you can go strong and if it's at nighttime in the firelight, you can get dark with shadows and intense with the fire center.
Hmm.
And the other thing too is like, I remember when Tim was working back in the day, he told me that he's talking to some of the early guys doing this TSR stuff that he was starting to get into when we were separated.
Yep.
They were painting, I don't know which artist it was, but he was painting a scene, and the highlights on the armor, the whatever it was, or the dragon, or what the hell ever it was, were brighter than the fire. The fire went up to yellow, or whatever it went up to, and the highlights went up to white on the clothes, or whatever, the armor. And Tim informed the gentleman that, gave him an enlightenment. Apparently, Tim told me, he said it was totally, it became like it's like you don't think about the things you don't think about until all of a sudden you think about it, or it gets pointed out
Yep.
to you. Now,
Absolutely.
wait a minute. If
Absolutely.
you have a light source in your picture and you can see that light source, well, nothing in the picture can be as bright as that light source, or else you lose the illusion of lighting that you're after.
Yep.
And you're after
Yep.
this illusion of lighting. And that's what people have always said about my work is it looks like it's lit up. It looks
Yes.
like it's lit. Yeah, that's because you think photography helps that. I did photography for, it's part of my profession. You learn about exposure. So as you paint a picture, you're exposing too. What's your exposure? In other words, what's your camera lens opened to on your primary center of interest, and as it proceeds downwards from the figure, if your light strength is here, you want it all in this area, and then it gets darker as it moves away. Do you know? So
Yep.
exposure, that's all part of that light against dark and dark against light thing. Is you're kind of like exposing mentally as a camera. So that's a whole other thing.
All right, I'm going to answer a business question here.
Okay.
So, to Chris Cohen. He says, "Hey there, I'm writing a book for games like Dungeons and Dragons, but I need illustrations. How, as an artist, yourself, do you appreciate being approached for large projects like this?" Okay, so I'm going to answer this. Chris, you can approach anyone, right, for a job, right? To contact Greg, you go through Gene, right? Gene at spiderwebart.com. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can afford Greg Hildebrandt,
Or
right?
whoever.
So you can approach whoever you want, but just be upfront with where you are at with your budget. All right. If you don't have a budget, then seek out people that don't want a budget. I don't know who that's going to be, but also please note that uh, you're asking people to do a job for you. So offering to pay an exposure, probably not the best way to go. So if it's something you want and you want to get published, make sure that you've raised enough money through Kickstarter or whatever to be able to actually pay people something to do the work. But like with that being said, you can approach whoever you want and just say, "Hey, I've got this project. This is what I'm looking for, and this is my budget. Can you do it?" All right. Does that make sense to you, Greg?
Sounds good to me. It was clear.
Does that sound good to Jean in the background if she heard that?
You hear she's still wrapping the box. She's shipping a painting out. Someone, bought it. She wraps, she's, not only is she a genius at 5 million other things, but she knows how to make sure that a package is properly, safely packed and wrapped and everything. So that's what she's doing. What?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Gene just gave a business answer to someone requesting, a questioning, and Keith just wanted to know whether it sounded good to you. I don't think she heard it though.
She didn't hear it.
What was the question? What is the answer? So you have to come over here.
I'm coming.
Oh, here we are.
I can only walk so fast.
Do you need to sit?
Nope. What was the question? What was the answer?
So this will be Keith either getting reaffirmed or completely corrected on the live stream.
There you go. One or the other. Okay. Whoa, I don't know what just happened here. I got a million windows just open. Hang on, Keith.
Okay, so Chris Cohen, who replied back that he said he is not paying in exposure dollars, which is good. He said, how, as an artist, do you appreciate being approached for projects? And I said, well, he can absolutely approach anyone, right? But like to get a hold of Greg, he would contact you.
Right.
And if he wants to hire someone for a project, he should just come with a straightforward thing. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm looking for. And here's the budget that I have for this project. And as I said, he might not be able to afford a Greg Hildebrandt on a particular project, but he can most certainly ask. And I said, if he has a project that he doesn't have a budget for, he should probably try to raise money for that budget rather than trying to get people to do it for exposure.
And you needed me why?
I said, hey, does that sound good to you, Greg? And then
I said,
hey, does it sound good to Eugene? So does that sound good to Eugene?
Yeah, it sounds like you've been working with me for too many years.
There you go. Hallelujah.
You don't need me. I'm going back to my box.
All right. So, Chris, if you are looking for someone, I see you do have a budget, by all means, reach out to Jean, Jean, at spiderwebart.com. She is a phenomenal business manager, and she will either hook you up or point you in the right direction, or just say, hey, I'm not able to help with this project.
Yep.
But I think artists in general, probably for the most part, an easygoing bunch. Not everybody, but for the most part. So if you come forward straight with a straightforward pitch and proposal, you're going to be fine. Yes, and Genevieve Winters, I agree. Jean is way too funny. She makes me laugh every day. All right.
That's good.
So
make me laugh.
Yep.
Well, that's Jessica Rabbit said that to Roger. You know, that's why she's with him, because he made her laugh.
Made her laugh. Yep, it's important. Got to have a sense of humor in life, right?
Yep. Remember that scene? Remember that scene? What? No, go on. No, I was just segueing. I was just segueing into Jessica Rabbit at the Ink and Paint Club when Eddie is sitting there, live action, and she comes on stage, and he says, "She's married to Roger Rabbit," and Betty Boop comes over to Eddie and says, "What a lucky Goyle." My favorite scene in the movie. Anyway, go on.
Okay, so where were we at? We were talking about lights and darks to help make that visual impact. And probably correct me if I'm wrong in this, but the proper balance of lights and darks are more important to visual impact than a load of details.
Absolutely. Detail, right. I mean, unless you have that strength of light against dark, dark against light, and positioning of the object within the picture plane, objects, adding all the detail in the world is not going to make it a better picture. You know, you can see that, I think, with some work, you can tickled and tickled and tickled and tickled, but what wasn't there to start off with was the composition. And unless you got to have that strength of composition and light and dark. That's number one. Everything else is secondary to that. Colors, detail, all secondary to that. That's not the issue. That's not the main thing. You know, painting every chink, every leaf, or every chain on chainmail is not the issue. When you're painting, say, a knight, well, just go look at some of N.C. Wyatt's King Arthur paintings. You know, the mail is. It's the setup. It's the power of that composition, and the way he's dealt with values. That's now everything else now becomes secondary to that, and it's all the rest of it's beautiful, color, value, and all that. But those issues are there. That's what made him such a strong illustrator, painter. You know.
Yeah, the thing I'm trying to think with him, the composition was just so solid.
Boom.
Right.
He was
That's like the
amazing.
only word that I can use to describe it. Not like volumetric solid.
Yeah.
But just
bam
there. You know.
Oh my God, incredible. I think he was always one of my favorites, maybe my favorite, really, of American illustrators. You know, of that whole era, and even now. I mean, of any era. But the power of his composition. But then it's not only the power. It's the sympathy, it's the sensitivity, it's the understanding that he had. You know, it's all kinds of stuff going on. But the strength of the setup was always overwhelming. Beautiful. It's just incredible.
You know, that's, with him, and you had mentioned Frazetta earlier with composition, and again, very simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But such a physical impact.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of stuff was just very loose in
broad.
There. You know, just a couple indication strokes.
Right.
Of what something is, and with Frazetta, I mean, there's no two ways about it. He's probably one of the most imitated.
Oh yeah.
Artists out there.
Since the 70s at least, of those covers that he did, the Pellucidar and John Carter stuff, that became bam. I mean, he had a long career before that, but that's the stuff that puts him in the public's eye.
Yes. Yep. Not a lot of the comic art and stuff like that.
No,
but
people
particularly those Conans and the John Carter Mars poses and things like that. But when I find that when people are imitating that stuff, they're misinterpreting what he was doing in some cases, particularly in one of his main signature things is if there's a limb going off into the distance or whatever, it's just scrubbed in, right? Scrubbed into the mist or whatever. And that kind of helps give that illusion of movement.
Yeah.
But I find a lot of people see that and just do it without knowing.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to know.
Why. They don't know why they're doing it. They're just.
So that's the issue. Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah. Knowing why, understanding, as opposed to just copying somebody else. You're copying. It's like I probably said this phrase. I'm paraphrasing it. Leonardo da Vinci said to his students. I'm paraphrasing again. You have to take a scientific approach when you're painting. You have to understand and know what you're doing, painting, drawing. You have to understand it. If you're not, all you are is a mirror reflecting something and not understanding what it's reflecting. That's all you're doing. So if you're just slavishly copying without understanding, wait a minute, again, like we said, how is that color moving? From the highlight to the shadow, understanding that branch or that tree in the distance, that it's hazed out, and why is it? So you're basically, you got to know physics to a degree, either not as a scientist, but
Yeah, yeah,
abstractedly, right?
yeah, yeah,
have to have a grasp of how things are and what they look like and what nature does and how it acts, and yeah. But talking about the Frazetta thing, like you're saying correctly, he's broad painting with flat brushes, but then like the Death Dealer one, that one sitting on the horse, he
yep,
gets down to the armor mail. It's very tight.
yep.
So he would do that kind of like, that's a great way. There's a lot of illustrators that used to do that, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
still, I would,
focusing you in, right? Yeah,
I have that tendency. That's the way I kind of think. Whether or not I pull it off successfully, but that's in my mind. Is that things get less detailed the further away from the center they go. You don't need to have the detail. Why call attention to over here? Why do you want to pull attention to these rocks and this cliff in the corner? You don't need to. Keep the focus where it's at. In terms of tightness or detail. I think a lot of people beginning to compose. I notice that with kids, they have a fear of moving things towards the center. The center. They'll start to draw the bird in the corner, or maybe they put the moon over here, and they're leaving. They're kind of like there's sort of a fear, like the fear of color, to bring it towards the main area of the picture. And you put you like a fist. You put that there, and you leave it there. But that's the way I do it. Once I design a picture, I set the primary center of interest up there. Then I move everything around it. I don't start moving this over in the corner somewhere. I know I already set up within the picture plane where the hell I want it. Everything else gets moved around that.
yeah. It's again, like you said, it's that fear, and it's almost like you're trying to hide within your own picture.
Yeah, exactly. No, just come out, jump out of the closet, and put it right there. Right there where you want it to be seen. Here within this picture plane, about right there.
Yep.
About right there.
I have seen your work and the work of the brothers, of where the detail does go border to border, right? Now, but you are able to control that center of interest, and you do it with lighting.
Yeah, lighting, right? Exactly.
You do it with stage lighting. You light
Yeah,
up.
totally. Put spotlights on from the back.
Yeah.
And
But
I
there's
think
stuff going on in the shadows. There's detail in those in all of those shadows. They're there, but yeah, you control everything.
Look here.
With lighting.
This last one I did for, I don't even see it. It's all shiny, but
Yeah.
you do a lot with rim lighting. I love backlighting and rim lighting because that helps to make things read. I'm trying to avoid the shine, but it's tough. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You can have it very much register with a lot nice rim light, which in an interior like this, you can just do it arbitrarily because that light can be coming from anywhere.
Yeah.
And if you're outside in a natural setting, it becomes more difficult. You have to get the sun behind your subject and stuff like that, to keep it a natural setup and the natural lighting thing. But interiors or exteriors at night in artificial light, you can put lights where the hell you want. It's funny, that was the fun of doing all the Marvel stuff. You put lights down below so it lights up the character from the bottom, and you can make that any color you want. Depends on the subject and the setup that you're playing with. Again, that whole color and light thing is dictated by the subject.
And that the color and light thing that you're talking about and the way it hits the subject is also a way to add visual interest into a simplified composition.
Yeah.
Totally. You have to keep
the composition, like I say again, compositions, everything. If you go back and take a look at some of the illustrators, I want to name them all. My God, there's so many of them back in the 40s and 50s, and principally in women's magazines like Ladies' Home Journal and Red Book, and I mean, my God, but there were everyday scenes. A couple in the living room having drinks or something. A party. The way that they handled structure and setup within that, people should go look at these things, man. the or color. Edwin Georgi. This guy's freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
They're everyday pretty people, pretty Caucasian people. I mean, that's what it was back in the magazine days.
Yep.
But my God, what he did with lighting, it's like it's incredible. The intent. He would just talking about the letter. There's a couple laying on a beach. You know what I mean? Bright sunlight from the back, bouncing off the sand, bouncing back. I mean, there's more color and light in one of his paintings. Just people who are watching, go check him out. Edwin Georgi, Giorgi, and just what he did with color and light. It's phenomenal. Any artist should go check him out. Believe me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he's probably completely lost to most people. You know?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way with that golden era of illustration.
It's.
I mean,
they were
so much. Just
guys
richness.
Like Joe Bowler. I mean, and he would be doing these everyday scenes, you know, and they were fantastic. The compositions. Just the way he would use values, dark against light and light against dark. I mean, mind blowing, actually.
Yeah, it is fantastic. And look, man, hey, we are after 5 o'clock.
Oh my God, look at that. Time flies when you're having fun.
It does, man. I always enjoy these conversations.
Me too.
And
yeah, but did anybody else enjoy it? I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. Just kidding.
I hope so.
We hope so.
So if anybody watching here enjoyed what we were saying and what we were talking about, by all means, please give us a like and a share. To view and purchase any originals or prints of Greg's work, always visit spiderwebart.com. You can see the address down there in the bottom left of your screen. And as always, we truly appreciate everybody showing up live, chiming into the conversations and adding to it. We hope that these conversations enrich your day and drop a little knowledge on you for sure. All right. So,
well, for sure, I'll tell all you people who are out there who are actually listening, they enrich Greg's day. I'll tell you that. He enjoys it.
I want to end with that quote that I love so much, though. Kings are strong. Wine is stronger. Women even stronger. But truth will conquer all.
Oh, God bless us all, everyone. As Tiny Tim would say. Good night, everyone.
Bye, Keith.
Bye.